Welcome to the Busy with Becca Podcast, where I share insights to help you reshape your mindset and cultivate a healthy perspective. A healthy mindset is essential, especially when facing challenges and staying motivated to keep pushing forward. I may not have all the answers, but I invite you to sit back, enjoy the episode, and take away something meaningful as I dive in. Hello, beautiful listener. Welcome to today's episode on the Busy with Becca Podcast. Today, we're going to be reflecting, reframing, and realigning with our purpose in life and love. Don't worry, it will all make sense very soon. As I've said many times before, my mind is always processing thoughts, and every now and again, something hits me that lingers, and I ponder over it, write it down. And this one is something I actually want to share with the world, share with you. So the random thought I had the other day was just a one-liner, and it was, I think women are conditioned to like man, and men are programmed to not like woman. So let me prefix this episode by saying that this is not an attack on one gender or a focus on either, and I'm not asking anybody to do more. This is just an intrusive thought I had the other day that I really felt was a big deal, and that is why I'm sharing it for all of us to think about it. So I was thinking to myself that as women, we grow up with the expectation of having a man to love and hold, a man to grow old with, a man who will take care of us and give us that fairy tale life. And until recently, we were generally nurtured or conditioned to desire more, but then the more comes from a man creating it. Now, I don't think this is a bad thing. So let me start by saying that I'm not trying to challenge gender roles. I think it's important that I put that out so we don't get distracted from the core of my message. I feel it just takes a bit of rewiring to aspire to create for ourselves or to co-create that dream life instead of waiting for a man to create it for you or to birth it for you. Now, on the flip side, men are generally groomed to be life-facing. So that's what I meant by to not like woman. So they are life-facing. They don't generally think of women in terms of emotional expectations. That's growing up. Obviously, they're attracted to women. They have girlfriends. They grow up desiring women. But in terms of life, like life, aspirations and goals and stuff, they're more about building life, about creating things that are not dependent on their emotions or on how the home front is. They just go for gold, and then expect that woman will eventually come, woman will eventually appear. And let me expand on this little point. So you see men, growing businesses, rising up, rising in the ranks of their careers. They may have a girlfriend, but then you hear them say, oh, I'm not ready for marriage, or I'm building, which is no shade to people that do this, not at all. I'm just saying because they're career facing, they're business facing, for them, marriage will come when it comes. But on the flip side, a woman kind of has a timeline for herself, or I want to do this at this time. Generally speaking, not everybody feels this way. There's this sense of, oh yeah, I've earned this much, I've done this much, or worst case, they're saying, oh, when I get married, I will. After I get married, I will start. After I get married, I will build. But if you ask them what they dream of like living such a lavish life, owning things, traveling places, creative. So they kind of have the same aspirations as men. But then the point between the dream and the aspiration itself hasn't been thought out. There's no roadmap of, okay, I'm going to do this and this for the next 5 years, create this and this thing so that I can become this person. It's just, I have the dream, and then they're waiting for the man that will execute that dream or that has already built that, and then they just kind of fit into that. So I digress. Let me get back to what I was saying. So men generally focus less on being husbandable, in quotes, but then they build the environment for the woman to be the wife. This means that they end up learning how to love along the way in marriage. They have to learn to be greater partners as they make mistakes in their home, as they get older. And that is why generally it almost seems like older people, older men, most especially, are more emotionally intelligent, not because of age. If I actually everybody, but generally men, this is a specific example, are more emotionally intelligent and in tune with the female story because they've made mistakes so many times along the way and they are learning. And then you compare that with a 20-something-year-old man, and he's not, most of these things, he's aloof to them. Now, it doesn't mean you should give less credit to the younger person. It just means that it's not at the fore of his mind. But then a 20-something-year-old girl and a 40-something-year-old woman can have a conversation on emotional things, and be on the same wavelength. They experience the same emotions, they have the same understanding, they have the same aspirations, regardless of the difference in age. Is because from a young age, you're already processing those things. Yeah, anyway, back to my story. So, I feel women didn't always believe that they could build for themselves, but they knew what they wanted and selected men who could provide that aspiration or those aspirations. And men didn't always build the emotional presence and vulnerability that relationships actually required from scratch. Like I said before, they learned it later on from their wives and from many mistakes along the way. And then I also find that at the very extreme now, we have women who want to become like men and overdo it. They suppress their innate desire to nurture. And then there are men that are now overdoing the whole, I want to be soft and vulnerable, that they drop the stoicism required to be manly. So this is not a one-sided thing. It's not a villain story. It's a system story. And that's why I wanted to talk about it. So back again to buttress my point, women tend to focus more on being the perfect puzzle piece, while the man is building puzzles where the wife is one piece, a big piece, but one piece of many puzzles in his life. Same thing with his children. Now, how this applies today, I'm not too sure, which is why I'm bringing it out to you. Let's have a conversation, and I hope you drop comments on this. So, this makes for a perfect fit, a very perfect fit. So, the man brings the puzzle, a perfect fit to his puzzle. The woman is growing herself to add value to the man, and the man is adding value to her. So I see it as she's adding value to him from an internal point, that's the only word that comes to mind, from an internal point, and he's adding value to her from an external point. So there's nothing wrong, or there's nothing particularly wrong, but my questions go this way. If you want more, because generally people say they want more, they want more. Now, if you want more, ladies, my question to you is this: does your lifestyle reflect that of someone who wants to build an empire, this empire that you desire, or simply that of someone who wants a nice house, loving husband, and happy children? Neither of them are bad. But if you want the former, you need to think like someone who wants to build, not like someone who just wants things to drop on her lap. Say you want to travel more, so let's start from something very simple. How are you planning for those trips? How are you investing for those things? If you say you want a Fortune 500 company or to be the founder of something big, but then you're thinking very small from now, how do you want to close that gap? How are we getting from point A to point Z? Now, for men, do your thoughts ruminate on how you can work on your emotions and your lifestyle in a way that makes you a better husband and a present father? So time and time again, I see men, I hear men, young men saying, oh, this is how I want my home to be. Once I've done this, my wife will do this, my children will be that, I'll have this relationship. Like, they see these things on maybe social media, on TV, and they're like, oh yeah, that's what I want. But then you haven't really thought of the amount of work it'll take you internally to birth that kind of life. Yeah, you might find a wife that feeds into that image, but then have you become the man that can build that kind of home, that can develop that sweet relationship with your children where there's a nice balance between respect, and being a best friend. Have you ever attended a seminar or read a book on how to be a great husband or researched emotional intelligence just to prepare you for marriage and a home? Very rarely do we see conferences being, I don't even think I've ever seen it. I don't even think I've ever seen it where there's a conference or a seminar or a book on how to be a great husband. I'm sure they exist, but I don't see them. They are not common. But go to every street corner, every motor park, every bookstore, you see a book talking to women about how to be nurturing, how to be this, how to be that. Although I'm happy more books on how to be an entrepreneur, how to be self-reliant are coming up. I digress. How much time as a man do you invest on the insides of you, on being more in touch with the parts of you that make you a sweet husband, a loving husband, outside of, because I do ask these questions. I ask, okay, you're doing A, B, and C, but then you say you love your wife. Where's the correlation? And the answer is always, oh, but then I provide for her. Oh, I can die for her. Nobody wants you to die. Yeah, she wants to provide, but then there are other things you are not doing or you're not giving. And when women explain these things, it sounds so unreal. You don't understand it. Not because you're daft, but then it's just a part of yourself you've never explored. And you only learn from mistakes. But how about we avoid those mistakes? Yeah, I'm not saying any of these things to imply that the status quo is bad. It's just a random musing, and I'm bringing it to the fore. So if you love your life as it is, then this is just a thought. But if you want more out of life and your marriage, then it's something for you to mull over. Yesterday I was called a thought leader by someone dear to me, and that felt really, really, really good. And the reason it felt so good was not just because it was a compliment, but because I want to re-engineer people's perceptions on life. I want to create my own puzzles, and I believe I'm working towards that. But at the same time, I want to be a perfect piece to my husband's puzzle and raise my children right. I don't have issues with that. I'm not trying to, like I said, offset the status quo. I feel everybody has a role to play, and well, with a little tweaking here and there, it could all work out fine. So this isn't an attack on tradition. It's not a cry of injustice, although there are injustices. Or it's just a pause and a moment to think. Like I said before, if you're happy with your life and relationships as they are, that's beautiful. But if something in you is asking for more intention, more balance, more partnership, more empathy, then maybe this reflection is for you. So let me know what you think. And if this episode resonated with you, please share it with someone who you think it might help. And follow me, subscribe on YouTube, subscribe on Spotify, leave a comment, like wherever you're listening to this to or watching. I would really appreciate that, and it would help me reach other people. So have a lovely week ahead, and let's try to do better. Let's try to see things from the other person's perspective and be more empathetic to the other person's struggle. So women, be more empathetic to men and their emotions, and men, be more kind to your women and just listen. Not everything is her being overly emotional. There's some logic behind those emotions. Thank you.